Hey there. It's great to see everyone. We are live today in July. Oh, I get the window in here and get the sun streaming through here. So today we're going to talk about the hypothalamus and aging and vitality. I don't know if you know this, but there's a brand new study on the hypothalamus that shows that aging actually begins in the hypothalamus. Now, we always thought that it was more like just the DNA in every cell, but the orchestration of the aging, where metabolism slows down, detoxification slows down at the cellular and tissue level, begins in the hypothalamus, which is great, which means we can do something about it. One of the things that I have noticed is in my patients who've been on Genesis Gold for a long time, I'm talking years, some of them have been on as long as I have, which is like 20 years. They really do have a slowing down of their aging process. One of the things we just started doing is looking at their biological age compared to their chronological age. So biologically, at the cellular level, how old are they compared to how many years that they've lived? And we're finding that the majority of these people that I've been doing the testing on, and it's pretty simple blood tests. You can, look up measuring your biological age and plug in some of these, blood test numbers, and it comes up with a calculation. And I've mixed around with them too, where I've put in different numbers to try to see like what is actually going to change it. And they really are all the numbers together. It's looking at some chemistry panels, some numbers from your CBC, a CRP, hemoglobin A1C. So looking at all these numbers together, giving a chronological estimate of how old you are biologically, meaning how old your cells are. And what we're finding is that the patients have been on the Genesis Gold for a long period of time, like 10, 20 years, are biologically quite a bit younger than their chronological age, anywhere from 8 to 18 years younger. Okay, that's really incredible, because what we're finding is if the hypothalamus is at the root of the aging process, that's where it all begins. Then if we keep your hypothalamus functioning optimally through your midlife, you're going to age a lot slower. And we see that not just in your blood work, but how you feel. Are you sleeping through the night? How is your energy level? How's your brain functioning? What does your skin look like? Your hair? Are you able to maintain your fitness level? Can you build muscle? Are you still able to build that muscle? Do you have endurance? Do you have strength? Can you get off the floor without using your hands? What is your stability? This isn't just a fitness test. This is a longevity test. So we're seeing a lot of these people who have really taken care of their hypothalamus, taking the Genesis Gold, taking the Sacred 7, doing the lifestyle things that I talk about, trying to turn off those lights, okay, so they can sleep through the night, getting off the screens after dusk, eating a well-balanced plant-based diet, more of a Mediterranean type diet with lots of healthy fats, adequate protein for their lean body mass, trying to avoid those processed foods, trying to eat as little starches and sugars that are turned into sugar really quickly. It's really making a difference. And their mindset. And that's the other thing that's really cool about helping your hypothalamus function more optimally, is that you tend to have a healthier, more healing mindset. You tend to see the glasses half full rather than half empty. And if it does seem like it's only half, you figure out how to fill it up. What do you need? More hugs, more conversations, more joy in your life, more walks with nature? Do you need to be petting a kitten? Do you need to be gardening? What do you need to do to bring joy in your life and have a different mindset, a different, more vital and healthy mindset? So I do have some questions that people have sent ahead, which is great. And if you're on here live and you have any questions, just type them in and we'll get to them. I'll have Gabby, my assistant, who's super helpful with helping me with these lives, responding to your chats, putting the links in that we need, but also really helpful if you have a question. She's who you get first before you get to talk to me. Because she's available to answer those emails, to answer the questions, and even get on the phone with you if necessary to help you figure out what's next steps. Okay. So I have somebody named Manny who had a fall that caused her hypothalamus to not be operating very well, and also has Addison's disease. anyhow, this may be a male as well. I'm not sure. This Addison's developed into temporal arteritis, and which basically is an inflammation of the artery in the temporal area, which can cause pretty severe headaches. They really need help. Feels like they're dying. They lost 40 kilograms in weight. Last time they checked, they're under 5% body fat. Wonders if Genesis Gold will be helpful. So let's talk about what could happen to your hypothalamus if you have a trauma. This was a blunt trauma. They had a fall. So some kind of a brain trauma. So traumatic brain injury, TBI, is one of the most common causes of hypothalamic dysfunction, because your hypothalamus can be, it's right above the brainstem. And when you have a whiplash or you hit your head really hard, you have some kind of a head injury, a traumatic brain injury, your hypothalamus definitely can be affected, and oftentimes is, and is often overlooked. So when you develop hormonal problems afterwards, like Addison's disease, which basically means they're not producing enough cortisol, okay, their adrenals aren't functioning normally, developing arteritis, which is basically inflammation of the arteries, losing tons of weight, dropping the body fat, that is hypothalamic dysfunction. So can you get your hypothalamus back? Absolutely. Will Genesis Gold help? Yes, but because it's a traumatic brain injury, and I don't know how long ago it was because they didn't say, I would suggest adding Sacred 7 to the Genesis Gold, 1 full scoop of Sacred 7, and then Genesis Gold at your ideal body weight, not the body weight you are now. So if you were overweight and lost those 40 kilograms and you should have only lost 10 or 20 to get to your ideal weight, we want to go with that ideal weight and take enough Genesis Gold with a scoop of Sacred 7, 5-gram scoop of Sacred 7 to really enhance the healing of the hypothalamus. I have seen that work just with the Sacred 7 in traumatic brain injuries very early on, like an immediate head injury, work very quickly. This sounds like it's been a little while, enough to have lost this much weight. So I would have Genesis Gold on board with the Sacred 7 amino acids. Okay. And I would give it, according to how long you've been out of balance, I would say we're looking at least 6 months of this regimen to really help to heal your hypothalamus. Now, Phyllis writes that she's 67 years old. She's pre-diabetic. She weighs over 200 pounds, has high cholesterol. She's taking a statin for her cholesterol and taking a metformin to actually kind of lower her blood sugars. Wanted to be put on Ozempic. Did not like the way she would feel on it, was concerned about the constipation that was possible with Ozempic. She retired because at this point at 67, she's having a lot of joint pain. She has had a very strenuous job for almost 20 years. She was diagnosed with osteoarthritis as well. Blood work looks good, she says. So she said she figures that a lot of her issues could be dietary related. She loves her sweets. She loves breads. She also eats meats with rice and veggies. Could Genesis Gold help her lose weight and become the person she was before menopause, reduce her inflammation, and give her strength and energy? Is that possible or not? Yes, it's possible, but it's going to take time. Are you going to become the person you were before menopause? Your ovaries will not come back. Okay, but your hypothalamus will start to balance. And what's going to happen is as your hypothalamus balances, as it starts functioning optimally, your adrenal glands kick in and start making more of the precursors to the sex steroids, which can be really helpful. But it'll also help to reduce your inflammation. You're going to see less inflammation. Now, if you have joint injuries, you actually have damage, and you truly do have osteoarthritis where the joints have lost space and now you've got bone on bone, Genesis Gold isn't going to fix that. Okay. You may need some more like joint support, like glucosamine and chondroitin and some biocollagen to actually help build up that cartilage again. But it's definitely going to reduce the inflammation you have in your entire body and help you to start to lose weight, reset your weight set point so you can get some of that pressure off those joints and start to exercise. It'll also start to change what you're craving. So hopefully you can start shifting your diet more to a plant-based kind of a Mediterranean diet where you're not eating as many starches, eating a little more protein, maybe less rice, less breads, less sweet. So you can really start losing that extra body fat and eating a lot more produce, a lot more vegetables and some fruits as well. So it does take time to really get back into balance. So I would say, you want to commit for probably a year because you've been out of balance for a while and you've got a lot of different things going on, including high cholesterol and your blood sugars being out of balance as well. So Eric asked the question, can I talk about the effect of Genesis Gold might have on the pituitary gland and the HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis? So Genesis Gold being a hypothalamic support also affects the pituitary gland, because the hypothalamus is like the master gland. And think of we've always thought of the pituitary as being the master gland. It really isn't. It's more like middle management. The hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland what to do. So as the hypothalamus starts to improve its communication with the pituitary gland, the pituitary gland functions at a higher level and is able to improve its communication with the lower endocrine glands, in this case, the adrenal glands. The HPA axis is particularly, the adrenal gland production of cortisol is picked up by the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus then will tell the pituitary gland whether we need more or less cortisol by producing something called cortico-releasing factor, which tells the pituitary gland to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which then tells the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. This is usually set off not necessarily just by that mechanism, that negative feedback mechanism with cortisol, excuse me, but also a sympathetic nervous system reaction. When your nervous system is stimulated by stress, you produce adrenaline, which stimulates that sympathetic nervous system. And that then tells the body that after the adrenaline surge, which raises your heart rate, raises your blood pressure, you're going to need a little bit of your stored sugar released in order to run away or fight off danger. It's a fight or flight response. Cortisol's job is to release that stored sugar. So adrenaline actually turns on that sympathetic nervous system response, which then tells the hypothalamus to tell the pituitary, to tell the adrenals, produce cortisol so that you can run away or fight off danger, which is a very important axis. You have a HPT axis, a hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis. You have an HPO or HPT, hypothalamic pituitary testes or hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. So you have these feedback mechanisms. The HPA is the one that's most known because of this really sharp influence between cortisol and hypothalamic hormone production, cortico-releasing hormone. We know that stress affects that axis if it's run too often. If you're actually taking Genesis Gold, what it does is it helps the hypothalamus be more sensitive to cortisol and not hypersensitive, where it's over responding to cortisol production. It helps to change the circadian rhythm to match the day-night cycles and the seasonal cycles. So you're not spiking cortisol in the middle of the night and then not making enough cortisol during the daytime, so you're fatigued all the time. So it's more than just the response to the HPA axis. It's what the hypothalamus is doing in terms of circadian rhythm, in terms of metabolism, in terms of glucose utilization, in terms of insulin resistance, in terms of the nervous system, particularly autonomic nervous system response to stressors, to your gut, to whatever you're perceiving in your external environment to be a stressor or not, or a danger or not. All of those things are being fed back to the hypothalamus to tell it whether or not to trigger the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So it's kind of complicated, but if you're feeding the hypothalamus what it needs, it's able to orchestrate this seamlessly without you having to do. It's doing it anyhow, but it may not be doing it well without you having to think a lot about it, doing lots of deep breathing to calm yourself down, eating a certain way so you don't hyperstimulate yourself. Most of us are overstressed. We're overstimulated. We don't have enough sleep. So our HPA axis is kind of overrun. We're running it until it kind of just gets pooped out. And eventually the hypothalamus gets insensitive to cortisol. It's kind of like having a classroom full of kids and they're all yelling. A teacher that yells over all this classroom probably isn't paid attention to, but the teacher that whispers, the classroom oftentimes will get quiet. We want your hypothalamus able to whisper its communication to the pituitary gland in response to what it's perceiving in your body, not yell. Eventually, nothing's going to be working properly. So another question I have here is from Augie, who also fell in 2021, so 4 years ago, and suffered a concussion. Again, probably has some hypothalamic issues. if they take Genesis Gold, will it help balance energy dispersal between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system? Their understanding is that the force of the concussion caused the sympathetic nervous system to get the lion's share of energy rather than parasympathetic, which is why people who suffer concussion have fatigue symptoms continuously. Will Genesis Gold, taking it daily, help stop the energy imbalance that they're suffering? And I truly believe that if you've had a head injury that has affected your hypothalamus, taking Genesis Gold will help to optimize hypothalamic function. Your hypothalamus controls your autonomic nervous system. The two branches are the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system turns everything on, gets everything running fast. The parasympathetic nervous system calms everything down. Okay, so if the sympathetic nervous system is on overdrive, the body eventually becomes metabolically fatigued. Okay, if it's constantly telling you to turn it on, your cells are going to run out of energy. So your hypothalamus has to be on board and healthy in order to get the parasympathetic nervous system reacting appropriately to sympathetic nervous system response and quieting down that overstimulated sympathetic nervous system. It will take time. You're looking at least 90 days to really quiet down this, maybe a little bit longer since it's been 4 years. I'd probably say 7-8 months in total, 90 days to get started, and then another 4 months for 1 year per month in order to really, really get back to where you need to be and actually have a more balanced nervous system, so you're not fatigued all the time, but you do respond appropriately. What you'll probably notice is you get your energy back a little bit faster, but you still have to be careful about major stressors because your sympathetic nervous system hasn't been trained yet, which is why you want to go at least that full 7 or 8 months on Genesis Gold support to really help your hypothalamus function optimally. Oftentimes you'll start and you start feeling better, so you do a little bit too much, or you undergo a stressor, maybe you stressed yourself, maybe life stressed you, and you crash again. That's because you haven't had enough support for the hypothalamus to really have a good foundation. So feed it well, and then just keep feeding it to really keep your nervous system well balanced so you're not driving that sympathetic nervous system, overdriving it over and above what the parasympathetic nervous system is able to do for you. Okay. So Gabby, just type into the chat if we have any other questions, because I think that's what we had pre-questions. See if anybody else on the live. We do have, I do have a link in here that Gabby posted, which is looking at my nutritional recommendation and recipe when you sign up for my hormone reboot training. Everything else, everything is in there. So I have a lot of freebies in my hormone reboot training. It's based on my first book, Hormones in Harmony. It's kind of like a video, taking you through the book like a book club, but using video. But it really gives you all of the extra information that you need with the diets, meditations, exercise recommendations are all part of this reboot training, so that you really have everything you need to really get started on all the lifestyle things you need to do to heal your hypothalamus. And then there's also a discount as well at the end of this course where you can get a discount on your first bag of Genesis Gold. So thank you for being here with me. I love meeting with you, and I hope to see you in a couple weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.